Where is the Yucatan?
The Yucatan is a large peninsula in southern Mexico. The Yucatan Peninsula points toward Florida and separates the Gulf of Mexico from the Caribbean Sea.
What is a renewable resource?
A renewable resource is one that can be replenished within a generation. Forests, as long as they are replanted, are a renewable resource. Materials such as oil, coal, and natural gas are known as non-renewable resources because they require millions of years to be created. So, once the world's supply of oil is gone, it's gone for a long, long time.
What is Africa's largest lake?
Located in eastern Africa, Lake Victoria is Africa's largest lake. With a surface area of approximately 27,000 square miles, 70,000 square kilometers. It is also the world's second largest freshwater lake, after Lake Superior. Lake Victoria is bordered by Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania. The lake was named by British explorer John Hanning Speke. The first European to see the lake, in 1858, in honor of the reigning British Queen.
Why was there a Russian outpost in California?
Established in 1812, Fort Ross was a Russian outpost located in what is now Sonoma County, California. The outpost was started so that Russian fur traders could explore and exploit the area. A Russian presence was maintained at the fort until 1841.
What is a boomerang?
The boomerang was developed as a hunting tool by the Aborigines of Australia. There are two types of boomerangs, those that return and those that do not return. The returning boomerang is used to kill small animals. The non-returning boomerang is used to kill large game or enemies.
Who was Captain Kidd?
Though Captain William Kidd was hired by the British to fight pirates, he himself soon became a pirate. After he set sail for Africa, an area swarming with pirates. Reports returned to Britain that Kidd himself had captured several ships. Upon learning of a warrant for his arrest, Kidd sailed to Boston to meet a benefactor, who then had Kidd arrested and sent back to Britain. On May 23, 1701, Kidd was hanged for piracy.
How, why, and how much does magnetic north move?
Scientists aren't sure why the Earth's magnetic pole moves, only that it does. The amount of movement varies, but it's never more than a few miles each year.
What is the European Union?
In 1951, 6 Western European countries joined together in the European Coal and Steel Community. As more members joined, the organization grew in scope and soon became an organization that helped mend and meld the economies of Europe. In 1993, the European Community was renamed the European Union, EU. Today, there are 27 member states: Austria, Belgium, Bulgaria, Cyprus, Czech Republic, Denmark, Estonia, Finland, France, Germany, Greece, Hungary, Ireland, Italy, Latvia, Lithuania, Luxembourg, Malta, the Netherlands, Poland, Portugal, Romania, Slovakia, Slovenia, Spain, Sweden, and the United Kingdom. The European Union has a flag, an anthem, and in 1999 began using a single monetary unit, the euro.
When and where was the last great impact on the Earth from a near-Earth object?
The last big impact was in 1908 in Tunguska, Russia, in Siberia. Scientists do not know for sure what hit the Earth. It could have been a comet or meteoroid, but whatever it was, it had an estimated explosive energy of 15 megatons.
What is a bullet train?
Bullet trains, or Shinkansen, as they are called in Japan, are similar to traditional passenger trains, but have been enhanced to travel at speeds of up to 215 miles per hour, 346 kilometers per hour. They have been used in Japan since 1965. In 2003, Japan set a world record, testing another generation of bullet trains capable of exceeding 361 miles per hour, 581 kilometers per hour.
Where are the East and West Indies?
The East and West Indies are separated by half the planet. The West Indies are islands in the Caribbean, including the Greater Antilles, the Lesser Antilles, and the Bahamas, while the East Indies include islands that encompass Indonesia, Malaysia, and Brunei. When Christopher Columbus reached the New World in 1492, he believed that he had actually found a shorter route to the East Indies. Thus, Columbus thought the islands he had reached made up a portion of the Indies and considered the island's inhabitants to be Indians.
Where did the Inca civilization develop?
In the 15th and 16th centuries. The civilization of the Incas developed in the altiplanos of the Andes Mountains. Altiplanos are high plains located among the mountains that are suitable for habitation. The Bolivian capital of La Paz is also located on an altiplano. The Inca civilization lasted from approximately the 11th through 16th centuries.
What did Genghis Khan conquer?
Genghis Khan, the ruler of the Mongol Empire, conquered an area stretching from China to western Russia to the Middle East. Khan created the world's largest empire, which began to dissolve following his death in 1227.
What are tornadoes?
Tornadoes are very powerful, yet tiny storms that have destructive winds capable of leveling buildings and other structures. Winds in a tornado form a dark gray column of air, with the center of the tornado acting like a vacuum, picking up objects and moving them along the storm's path. Tornadoes can last from a few minutes to an hour.
Why is there often a cross next to the east direction on maps?
On old maps, a cross often sits next to the east direction on a compass rose. This cross represents the direction to paradise and the Holy Land.
Who was the first European to see the Pacific Ocean from its eastern shore?
In 1513, Vasco Nene de Balboa crossed the Isthmus of Panama and became the first European to see the Pacific Ocean from its eastern side. Wearing full armor, he walked straight into the ocean and claimed it and all the land it touched for Spain. He named the discovery the Mar del Sur, the South Sea. Only 6 years later, Balboa was beheaded by a jealous rival.
Where is Catalonia?
Catalonia is an autonomous region in northeastern Spain. Because Catalonia is home to more than 6 million Spanish Catalans, who have their own language and culture. Many in the region would like the territory to become an independent nation. Spain does not want Catalonia to secede, as Catalonia is responsible for a sizable portion of Spanish economic production. Catalonia's capital is Barcelona, the host city of the 1992 Summer Olympics.
Everest growing taller?
Because of the shifting plates underneath the surface of the Earth, Mt. Everest is actually growing at a rate of 2.4 inches, 6.1 centimeters, per year.
Why is a book of maps called an atlas?
The term atlas comes from the name of a mythological Greek figure, Atlas. As punishment for fighting with the Titans against the gods, Atlas was forced to hold up the planet Earth and the heavens on his shoulders. Because Atlas was often pictured on ancient books of maps, these became known as atlases.
How dry is Antarctica?
Though Antarctica is covered with ice, it is the driest continent on the planet. The ice in Antarctica has been there for thousands of years, and the continent receives less than 2 inches. 5 centimeters of precipitation annually. The Sahara Desert receives 10 inches, 25 centimeters, each year.
What is Iceland's leading export?
Over 3/4 of Iceland's exports are fish. The fish industry employs 12% of the nation's workforce. And the country is economically vulnerable to fluctuations in world fish prices.
Where can I buy maps?
There are many places you can buy maps. Most large bookstores offer an extensive collection of local and foreign travel maps, wall maps, and atlases. Also, many cities have specialty travel and map stores that offer a larger and more varied collection of maps, as well as maps of more exotic locales. Maps are also available at many websites on the internet. Just put in the name of the place, region, city, or country that you wish to find, and you will discover both maps that are either free or available for purchase. Look for the most up-to-date maps when selecting a map from more than one available vendor.
What playwright and author became president of an Eastern European country?
Czech poet and author Václav Havel was both the last president of Czechoslovakia, 1989 to 1992, and the first president of the Czech Republic, 1992 to 2003. He has won numerous literary awards for his works, as well as the U.S. Presidential Medal of Freedom, the highest honor bestowed by the President of the United States to a civilian.
Which country has a flag of only a single color and no design or emblem?
The Libyan flag is green without a design. This North African country is located between Egypt and Algeria and has a population of over 6 million people.
What are fossil fuels?
Underground fuels such as natural gas, oil, and coal are all known as fossil fuels because they are encased in rocks, just like fossils. It takes millions of years of compression and the building up of dead plants and animals to create these fuels.
What was the Byzantine Empire?
After the fall of Rome in 476 C. E. The eastern portion of the Roman Empire became the Byzantine Empire. The capital city of the Byzantine Empire was moved far east to Constantinople, now Istanbul. At one point, the empire included most of the eastern and southern coast of the Mediterranean Sea. The empire shrank in size until 1453, when Constantinople was conquered by the Ottoman Empire.
What is ANZUS?
In 1951, Australia, New Zealand, and the United States signed the Australia-New Zealand-United States ANZUS treaty to protect each other militarily. In 1986, New Zealand banned nuclear weapons from its country and thereafter refused to allow U.S. nuclear-powered or nuclear-armed ships to dock in its harbors. New Zealand was summarily excluded from the treaty.
What are the highest points on each continent?
The highest peak in South America, Aconcagua, lies in Argentina at 22,834 feet, 6,960 meters. In North America, Alaska's Mt. McKinley, also called Denali, as it is known indigenously, is 20,320 feet. 6,194 meters. The famous Mt. Kilimanjaro, 19,340 feet 5,895 meters, is in Africa's Tanzania. Ice-covered Antarctica's high point is known as Vinson Massif, 16,864 feet, 5,140 meters. Europe's Mont Blanc is in the Alps between France and Italy at 15,771 feet, 4,807 meters. Australia's high point, Kosciuszko, is the lowest of all the continents at 7,310 feet, 2,228 meters.
Which country has more languages than any other in the world?
Papua New Guinea is home to more than 700 different languages. The most common languages spoken there are Motu and Pidgin English.
How many layers are in the atmosphere?
There are 5 layers that make up the Earth's atmosphere. They extend from just above the surface of the Earth to outer space. The layer of the atmosphere that we breathe and exist in is called the troposphere, and extends from the ground to about 10 miles, 16 kilometers, above the surface. From about 10 miles to 30 miles, 16 to 48 kilometers, up lies the stratosphere. The mesosphere lies from 30 to 50 miles, 48 to 80 kilometers, above the surface. A very thick layer, the thermosphere, lies from 50 all the way to 125 miles up, 80 to 200 kilometers. Above the 125 mile, 200 kilometer, mark lies the exosphere and space.
Is the Earth a perfect sphere?
No, the Earth is a bit wider than it is high. The shape is often called a geoid, Earth-like, or an ellipsoid. The rotation of the Earth causes a slight bulge towards the equator. The circumference of the Earth at the equator is 24,901.55 miles, 40,066.59 kilometers, which is about 41 miles. 66 kilometers, greater than the circumference through the poles, 24,859.82 miles, 40,000 kilometers. If you were standing on the moon, looking back home, it would be virtually impossible to see the bulge, and the Earth would appear to be a perfect sphere, which it practically is.
When did suburbs become fashionable?
Following World War II, the subsequent housing boom and construction of interstate highways led to the development of low-density housing surrounding cities. These areas of low-density housing are known as suburbs. Suburbs have been extremely popular since the 1950s.
What was the world's worst nuclear disaster?
In April 1986, the Chernobyl nuclear power plant in the Ukraine, near the border with Belarus, had a major accident that released radiation into the atmosphere. The protective covering of the nuclear reactor exploded and deadly radiation escaped, immediately killing at least 31 people. The radiation exposure that initially occurred is still killing people through related diseases. And this will continue for many years. More than 100,000 people were evacuated from the region. And deaths due to radiation poisoning continue as radioactive isotopes spread across Europe.
What is tundra?
Tundra is dry, barren plains that have significant areas of frozen soil or permafrost. Tundra is common in the northernmost parts of North America, Greenland, Europe, and Asia. Although rather inhospitable, there is plant life on the tundra. This life consists of low, dense plants such as shrubs, herbs, and grasses. There are even some species of insects and birds that can survive the harsh conditions of tundra.
Is the Great Wall of China the only man-made object that can be seen from space?
No, it is not. Besides the Great Wall of China, there are many other man-made structures. Visible with the naked eye from space, such as urban areas and highways.
When did agriculture begin?
Agriculture began about 10 to 12,000 years ago in a time period known as the First Agricultural Revolution. It was at this time that humans began to domesticate plants and animals for food. Before the Agricultural Revolution, people relied on hunting wild animals and gathering wild plants for nutrition. This revolution took place almost simultaneously in different areas of human settlement.
What is permafrost?
Soil that is permanently, or for a good part of the year, frozen is known as permafrost. Permafrost occurs in higher latitudinal regions, which have cold climates.
Why do houses fall into sinkholes?
Houses that sit upon limestone rock have the proclivity to fall into sinkholes. As underground water wears away the limestone rock, it creates underground caverns. If the water wears away too much limestone, the cavern may collapse, taking anything on the surface with it. A sinkhole is just one of the many reasons to have your home inspected by a geologist.
What is the Strait of Magellan?
Ferdinand Magellan discovered the strait that bears his name. In 1520 during his voyage that circumnavigated the Earth. Magellan used the strait as a shortcut around the southern tip of South America. The waters of the Strait of Magellan are violent and surrounded by dangerous rocks.
What is Ulaanbaatar?
Ulaanbaatar is the capital of the Republic of Mongolia.
What's the difference between the old emergency broadcast system and the emergency alert system?
The Emergency Broadcast System, EBS, created in 1964 to warn the country of a national emergency such as nuclear attack, became the Emergency Alert Service, EAS. In 1997, the old EBS system relied on one primary radio station in each region to receive an emergency message and then broadcast it to the public and other media outlets. The new system, which also includes cable television, operates via computer and can be automatically and immediately broadcast to the public. It also allows additional local governmental agencies the opportunity to broadcast emergency messages. Future plans for the EAS include radios and televisions that will automatically turn on when an alert is announced.
What percentage of Americans volunteer each year?
More than 26% of Americans volunteer in some form each year, which means nearly 61 million people donate their time.
What's the big red rock in the middle of Australia?
The big, red, sandstone monolith in the center of Australia is called Uluru. Its indigenous name, it was previously called Ayers Rock. It is the world's largest monolith, approximately 1.5 miles. 2.4 kilometers, wide and 1/5 of a mile, 1,100 feet 335 meters, high.
How much is the sea level rising?
Recent estimates show the sea level has increased 7 to 12 inches. 20 to 30 centimeters, during the 20th century.
How did a map stop cholera?
In the 1850s an outbreak of cholera threatened London. Dr. John Snow, a British physician, mapped the deaths associated with the disease and determined that many deaths were occurring near one water pump. The pump handle was removed and the spread of the disease stopped. Prior to this time, the method by which cholera spread was unknown. Today, medical geographers and epidemiologists frequently use cartography to determine the cause and spread of disease or epidemics. The status of the community's utilities, roads, and properties. In an emergency, GIs can give emergency teams the information they need to evacuate endangered areas and respond to the crisis.
Where is the Bay of Pigs?
The Bay of Pigs is a bay in southwestern Cuba. In 1961, the bay became the location of an attempted coup against the Cuban government by revolutionaries trained and financed by the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency. After the attempted coup failed, the United States abandoned the revolutionaries, most of whom were killed or captured in the days following the coup attempt.
How much of the Earth is covered by water?
About 70% of the surface area of the Earth is covered by water. The other 30% of the Earth is land, located primarily in the northern hemisphere. If you look at a globe, you'll notice that the southern hemisphere has a great deal of ocean.
When did daylight saving time move from the end to the beginning of April in the United States?
The shift of the beginning of daylight saving time from the last Sunday in April to the first Sunday in April took place in 1987, when the Uniform Time Act was amended. In 2007, daylight saving time was moved again to the second Sunday in March and the first Sunday in November.
What is the Ring of Fire?
If you were to look at a map of the world's major earthquakes and volcanoes, you would notice a pattern circling the Pacific Ocean. This dense accumulation of earthquakes and volcanoes is known as the Ring of Fire. The ring is due to plate tectonics and the merger of the Pacific Plate with other surrounding plates, which creates faults and seismic activity, especially Alaska, Japan, Oceania, and the west coasts of North and South America, along with volcanic mountain ranges such as the Cascades of the U.S. Pacific Northwest and the Andes of South America.
What is a thunderstorm?
Thunderstorms are localized atmospheric phenomena that produce heavy rain, thunder and lightning, and sometimes hail. They are formed in cumulonimbus clouds, big and bulbous, that rise many miles into the sky. Most of the southeastern United States has over 40 days of thunderstorm activity each year, and there are about 100,000 thunderstorms across the country annually. Thunderstorms are different from typical rainstorms because of their lightning, thunder, and occasional hail.
What was the Rwanda genocide?
The Rwanda genocide was the systematic killing of hundreds of thousands of people belonging to the Tutsi minority ethnic group by the majority Hutus. Most of the killing occurred within a span of 100 days in the summer of 1994. It was carried out by two Hutu extremist military groups. At least 500,000 people were immediately killed. And as many as 1 million people lost their lives by the end of the massacre. The genocide had its roots in the Rwanda Civil War, which pitted the majority Hutus against the Uganda-supported Tutsi minority.
What are the 5 smallest states?
The 5 smallest states are Rhode Island, 1,200 square miles 3,108 square kilometers. Delaware, 2,000 square miles 5,180 square kilometers, Connecticut. 5,000 square miles 12,950 square kilometers, Hawaii, 6,500 square miles 16,835 square kilometers. And New Jersey, 7,800 square miles 20,202 square kilometers.
What are incidence maps?
Researchers at such institutions as the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, use incidence maps, which plot where and how people have been infected or exposed to such potentially harmful viruses as the influenza, the Ebola virus, West Nile virus, and HIV in order to understand the rate of transmission as related to geography. An incidence map may help scientists figure out the origin of a disease and where and how quickly it is spreading. Global incidence maps are of increasing importance in the fight against potentially harmful biological disasters.
What is the most populated urban area in the world?
The capital city of Tokyo, Japan, still reigns as the most populated urban area in the world, with over 35 million inhabitants. The next largest urban areas include Mexico City, Mexico, 18.7 million, New York, Newark. United States, 18.3 million, Sao Paulo, Brazil, 17.9 million, and Mumbai, India, 17.4 million.
What was Pangaea?
About 250 million years ago. All of the land on Earth was lumped together into one large continent known as Pangaea. Faults and rifts broke the land masses apart and pushed them away from each other. The continents slowly moved across the Earth to their present positions, and they continue to move today. The Indian subcontinent, composed of India and its neighbors, continues to push into Asia and create the Himalayas.
What was the first major city in the Western Hemisphere?
From the 1st through the 7th centuries, the city of Teotihuacan flourished. Located northeast of modern Mexico City, Teotihuacan had a maximum population of approximately 200,000 and was the first major city in the Western Hemisphere. The city was graced with the Pyramid of the Sun and the Pyramid of the Moon. Teotihuacan should not be confused with the Aztec city of Tenochtitlan, which was built nearly 6 centuries later in the area that is now known as Mexico City.
Where was Kunta Kinte from?
Kunta Kinte, the protagonist of Alex Haley's novel Roots, was from Gambia. Though Gambia follows 200 miles, 322 kilometers, of the Gambia River, it is a very thin country, averaging only 12 miles, 19 kilometers, in width. Gambia lies entirely within Africa's smallest country, Senegal.
Why is it important to have an out-of-state contact in case of a disaster?
It's usually easier to call outside of a disaster area than inside one. By identifying a relative or friend who lives outside of your home state as an emergency contact, your family can ensure communication following a disaster.
Who decides which names go on maps?
In the United States, the U.S. Board on Geographic Names, BGN, approves the official names and spellings of cities, rivers, lakes, and even foreign countries. If a town would like to change its name, it must petition the BGN for approval. Upon approval, the name is officially changed and updated in federal government gazettes and records, which official and commercial map makers use for their maps.
Which explorer was named the Grand Imperial Eunuch by the Emperor of China?
The Chinese explorer Cheng Ho helped Emperor Yongle come to power in 1402. And in 1404 the emperor named Cheng Ho the Grand Imperial Eunuch. In 1405, Cheng Ho set sail on the first of his 7 voyages, which spread Chinese influence and knowledge throughout South Asia and Africa. China moved toward isolationism after Yongle died.
Where is the Western Hemisphere's oldest university?
Founded in 1538, the Autonomous University of Santo Domingo in the Dominican Republic is the oldest university in the Western Hemisphere.
How much of the world's population is devoted to agriculture?
In less developed countries, such as Asia and Africa, a majority of the population is engaged in agricultural activity. In the more developed countries of Western Europe and North America, less than 1/10 of the population relies on agriculture for their livelihood.
What are the 4 main islands that make up Japan?
The northernmost island, Hokkaido, is home to the city of Sapporo. The largest island, Honshu, is the Japanese core area that includes Tokyo and Osaka Kyoto. The Japanese island of Honshu is the world's 7th largest island in the world, as well as the 2nd most populous island in the world with 103 million people. It is the mainland island of Japan. Honshu covers 86,246 square miles, 223,656 square kilometers, which makes it larger than the island of Great Britain. In the south are the islands of Shikoku and Kyushu. Kyushu is the southernmost island and was the first island where foreign traders were allowed into Japan. It has a population of over 13 million. Besides the 4 main islands, Japan includes 2,000 smaller islands. Japan's population is 128 million people and is declining at a rate of 0.02% per year.
How many states have 4-letter names?
There are 3 states that tie for having the shortest name: Utah, Ohio, and Iowa.
If I dug through the earth, would I end up in China?
If you are in North America and you were able to dig through the earth, which is impossible due to such things as pressure, the molten outer core, and solid inner core, you would end up in the Indian Ocean, far from land masses. If you were really lucky, you might end up on a tiny island. But you're surely not going to end up in China. The points at opposite sides of the Earth are called antipodes. Most antipodes of Europe fall into the Pacific Ocean.
Which South American country was the first to gain independence from colonial rule?
In 1816, Argentina gained independence from Spain. International recognition of the independent country, then called the United Provinces of the Plate River, did not come until 1823, when the United States recognized the new state.
How do maquiladoras help clothe the United States?
Maquiladoras are Mexican factories owned by foreign, usually U.S. corporations. Most often located along the Mexican U.S. border. Maquiladoras receive raw materials from the United States and produce finished goods for export. Maquiladoras commonly produce clothing and automobiles.
How many educational institutions are there in the United States?
There are more than 130,400 primary and secondary schools, and more than 6,400 universities, colleges, and post-secondary schools in the United States.
What were some of the most destructive tornadoes in U.S. history?
Some of the worst tornadoes in U.S. history include, the Tri-State Tornado, which struck Missouri, Indiana, and Illinois in 1925, killing 695 people and injuring 2,027, the 1,840 Natchez tornado struck Mississippi, killing 317 people and causing injuries to another 109, and the St. Louis/East St. Louis tornado of 1,896 killed 296 people and injured 1,000.
Why are graves above the ground in Louisiana?
In Louisiana, the water level is so close to the surface of the ground that coffins, rather than being buried, are placed in tombs above ground to avoid the possibility of coffins floating out of place. A Louisiana cemetery looks like a miniature city, with tombs and alleyways.
Which river touches more countries than any other?
The Danube River, which begins in Germany, passes through or borders 10 countries in Europe. More than any other river in the world. On its journey, the Danube River encounters Germany, Austria, Slovakia, Hungary, Croatia, Serbia and Montenegro, Romania, Bulgaria, Moldova, and Ukraine.
What was the USSR?
The country called the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, commonly known as the Soviet Union, was created in 1924, 7 years after the Russian Revolution that overthrew the Tsarist monarchy. The Soviet Union consisted of Russia and its neighboring territories, such as Ukraine, Kazakhstan, and the Baltic states. By the end of 1991, communism had failed in the Soviet Union, and many of its internal republics became independent states.
What is the largest airport in the world?
In terms of floor area, China's Beijing Capital International Airport has over 10.6 million square feet. 986,000 square meters of space.
Will California eventually fall into the ocean?
No, it will not. The famous San Andreas Fault, which runs along the western edge of California from the San Francisco Bay Area to Southern California, is known as a transverse fault. This means that the western side of the fault, which includes places like Monterey, Santa Barbara, and Los Angeles, is sliding northward with respect to the rest of the state. In a few million years, the state's two largest urban areas, San Francisco and Los Angeles, will be right next to each other. The fault is moving at about 2 centimeters, just under an inch, a year.
Where was the most snowfall ever recorded?
Washington State's Mt. Baker recorded the most snowfall in a single season, 1,140 inches, 2,896 centimeters.
What is the difference between a lingua franca and a pidgin?
A lingua franca is a language used between people who do not have a common language. English is often used as a lingua franca in international business transactions. A pidgin is a language that has a small vocabulary and is a combination and distortion of two or more languages. For example, Pidgin English, a combination between English and indigenous languages, is used in Papua New Guinea between English-speaking and indigenous people. Most pidgins are lingua francas, but not all lingua francas are pidgins.
What are the different kinds of clouds?
There are dozens of types of clouds, but they can all be classified into three main categories: cirriform, stratiform, and cumuliform. Cirriform clouds are feathery and wispy, they are made of ice crystals and occur at high elevations. Stratiform clouds are sheet-like and spread out across the sky. Cumuliform clouds are the ubiquitous cloud, puffy and individual. They can be harmless or they can be the source of torrential storms and tornadoes.
What is acid rain?
Motor vehicles and industrial activity release tons of pollutants into the air. When mixed together, The pollutants form sulfuric and nitric acids that later fall to the ground in rain or snow. This precipitation is known as acid rain. Acid rain is responsible for damaging lakes by killing plant and animal life and for killing trees around the world. Canada has been especially hard hit by acid rain caused by industrial activities in the United States.
Where is the Rock of Gibraltar?
The Rock of Gibraltar is a limestone mountain located on the Gibraltar Peninsula in southern Spain. The city of Gibraltar, located on this same peninsula, is actually a British colony, and is used as a naval air base. This is the perfect location from which to control the Strait of Gibraltar, the small waterway that connects the Mediterranean Sea with the Atlantic Ocean. Spain has continually advocated a claim for this area but has been consistently unable to retrieve this vital piece of land. On the opposite side of the Strait of Gibraltar, at the northern tip of Morocco, Spain has its own autonomous community, consisting of Ceuta and Melilla, which is also strategically located to control the Strait of Gibraltar.
Which country is the world's leading copper producer?
Chile produces an astounding 20% of the world's copper annually, and contains approximately 1/4 of the world's copper reserves. The world's total copper production is 9.2 million metric tons. Thus Chile's production is 1.8 million metric tons.
What are dust devils?
These columns of brown, dust-filled air, which can rise dozens of feet, are not as evil as the name suggests. They are caused by warm air rising on dry, clear days. Winds associated with dust devils can reach up to 60 miles (96.5 kilometers per hour) and cause some damage. But they are not as destructive as tornadoes and usually die out pretty quickly.
What were some of the earliest colonies?
The Phoenicians, around the year 1000 B.C., founded some of the first colonies in Tyre, present-day Lebanon. Colonists from there went on to colonize Carthage, present-day Tunisia, and the coast of Spain. This enabled them to control access to the Atlantic Ocean and trade with the indigenous peoples of what is today Great Britain and France.
Is the Middle East a desert?
Actually, very little of the region is filled with sand dunes and sandstorms. Coastal areas are temperate, and several areas boast very pleasant and moist Mediterranean climates. A lack of water is a problem for agriculture throughout the region. So countries are experimenting with technological solutions such as desalination plants and drip agriculture for water conservation.
Who is the biggest exporter of rice in the world?
Thailand exports about 9.2 million metric tons of rice per year. About one-third of the total rice that is exported in the world. The Philippines imports the most rice in the world, approximately 2 million metric tons each year.
How do cartographers shape our world?
Cartographers are map makers, and cartography is the art of map making. Cartographers map neighborhoods, cities, states, countries, the world, and even other planets. There are as many types of maps to make as there are cartographers to make them.
When did the Iraq War begin?
The war, which has been called the Second Persian Gulf War and Operation Iraqi Freedom, began on March 20, 2003. Although President George W. Bush proclaimed the end of the war aboard the aircraft carrier USS Abraham Lincoln on May 1, 2003. Declaring the mission accomplished, the war was still being waged 5 years later and with no end in sight.
Which countries are not members of the United Nations?
While almost every country in the world is a member of the United Nations, there is a short list of countries that are not members: Taiwan, Tonga, and Vatican City.
What is a moor?
A moor is uncultivated pasture land. You'll find moors in the United Kingdom. In the United States most people call them fields or prairies.
Where is the longest main street in the United States?
Main Street in Island Park, Idaho, is 33 miles, 53 kilometers long, making it the longest in the United States.
How many oceans are there?
The seas and oceans of the world are actually one big world ocean because they are connected. Most of the time the world ocean is divided into 4 main parts: the Pacific, Indian, Atlantic, and Arctic. By far the largest is the Pacific Ocean, more than twice the size of the Atlantic. The Indian is third in size, followed by the tiny Arctic Ocean.
What is a fossil?
The outline of the remains of a plant or animal embedded in rock is called a fossil. Fossils are formed when a plant or animal dies and becomes covered up by sediments. Over time, the layers compress the remains, which are then embedded into the rock.
What is the most common street name in the United States?
It's not Main Street. Second, third, first, and fourth streets are the most common, followed by Park, Fifth, and Main.
Where is the world's largest church?
The Basilica of Our Lady of Peace in Yamoussoukro, Ivory Coast, is the world's largest church, covering 100,000 square feet, 9,290 square meters. Built in 1989 by President Félix Houphouët-Boigny, the church has seating for 18,000 people. In 1983, Houphouët-Boigny relocated the capital of the Ivory Coast from Abidjan to his hometown of Yamoussoukro.
Which states are split into multiple time zones?
Florida, Indiana, Kentucky, and Tennessee are split into Eastern and Central Time. Kansas, Nebraska, North Dakota, South Dakota, and Texas are split between Central and Mountain Time. Idaho and Oregon are split between Mountain and Pacific Time.
What's the difference between England, Great Britain, and the United Kingdom?
Northeast of France lie two large islands. Great Britain to the east and Ireland to the west. On the island of Great Britain there are three regions. England in the southeast, Wales in the southwest, and Scotland in the north. The other island, Ireland, is divided into two political divisions. The region called Northern Ireland in the north and the country of Ireland in the south. The United Kingdom is a country that includes all three regions on the island of Great Britain. England, Wales, and Scotland, and the one northern region on the island of Ireland, Northern Ireland.
What is Melanesia?
Located northeast of Australia, Melanesia is a small region that lies south of the equator and west of 180 degrees longitude, but excludes New Zealand. Melanesia includes the countries of Vanuatu and Fiji as well as the Solomon Islands and New Caledonia.
Who owns Antarctica?
Though Antarctica is a cold, icy, barren territory, 7 countries claimed portions of it in the early 20th century. All of these claims were defined by lines of longitude. And problems arose as many of these claims overlapped. In 1959, the Antarctic Treaty was established, proclaiming that no additional claims could be made upon Antarctica and that the continent would be used solely for scientific purposes.
Who was the first person to reach the North Pole?
Though American explorer Robert Edwin Peary is credited as the first to reach the North Pole, it is likely that he only came within 30 to 60 miles, 48 to 80 kilometers, of 90 degrees north during his expedition in 1909. Who did actually reach the pole first is still being debated.
When was the first watch made?
In the early 16th century, German locksmith Peter Kenline began to produce portable clocks called Nuremberg eggs. Advances in later centuries led to timepieces that could be worn on the wrist.
Can people live in a torrid zone?
The ancient Greeks divided the world into climatic zones that are not accurate. The 3 zones included frigid, temperate, and torrid. They believed that civilized people could only live in the temperate zone, which, of course, was centered around Greece. From Europe northward was part of the inhospitable frigid zone, while most of Africa was torrid. Unfortunately, this 3-zone classification system stuck and was later expanded to 5 zones once the southern hemisphere was explored. People identify everything north of the Arctic Circle, near northern Russia, and south of the Antarctic Circle, near the coast of Antarctica, as frigid, everything between the tropics and the Arctic and Antarctic circles as temperate, and the zone between the Tropic of Cancer and Capricorn as torrid.